Daniel Goldstein. I'm an artist, sculptor, and a lot of what I do is working around the subject of HIV and AIDS in my work. I don't think of myself particularly as an activist, as an art activist, and yet I know my art really activates people. So I guess I am an activist. What I want to get across, especially in this piece, Medicine Man, is what it's like to live with HIV, not just for me, but for everybody who's taking these medications. A lot of people, when they see this piece, people who are not HIV positive, who do not know HIV positive people, when they see this piece, they go, oh my God, you put all those drugs in your body, and they see all those needles, which are very scary, and it's like, this is what it's like to live with HIV. It's a constant, everyday thing that you have to be conscious of. It's not something you can just let it go. This is your daily life. And so that's part of the activism. And the other part too is for people who are living with AIDS and taking these drugs, it's a reminder, it's a memorial, because there's people, this piece has bottles, they're my medicine bottles, they are the bottles of my dead partner, they are the bottles of some of my dead friends. So it's a figure, it's a body made up of many people's parts. So it's a memorial to them and to people and to those of us who are still living. One of the reasons I want to have something like this artwork out there in the world is to remind people that living with AIDS is hard work. It's difficult. So if this can get them to use condoms, to have safe sex, that would make me feel, if it just makes one person go, oh, I really need to take care of myself. I need to have safe sex. That would make my life, this work, worthwhile. Because you do not want to live with this disease, trust me. When people see my work, particularly Medicine Man, and they also see me right next to it, it's good, because a lot of times people have this vision in their head of people with AIDS as looking really sick, as emaciated, and obviously I'm not. When I was in South Africa, I showed a piece very similar to this in South Africa. And South Africa, people do not trust Western medication, and also there's a huge amount of stigma attached to HIV. When I set up this piece, or a similar piece in South Africa, the guys who were helping me were all Africans, and after we finished, there were like 5 guys helping me, I asked the curator, I said, are any of these people HIV positive? And she said, I don't know. She said they would never tell me, and they would never talk to each other about it. But here they see me being very out about I've been HIV positive for 26 years, and they see me being out about it, they see me being healthy. So I think that can really change people's minds about what living with HIV looks like and is like. And so that's one of the other reasons that it's not just the sculpture that's out there, but I really like to be with it. And when I showed it in the United States, it meant something to me, but when I showed it in Africa, I felt so connected to this piece. I felt like it was me, that it was speaking for me and I was speaking for it. It was like we were brothers. So it was where it's shown really changes how it's seen and how I react to it. So it's a wonderful experience to have it being shown around the world. When I show my work, I never know what kind of reaction I'm going to get, because I work mostly for myself. I work in the studio, and if I like it, it goes out of the studio. If I don't like it, it doesn't leave the studio. So then when it goes out into the world, I never know what the reaction is going to be. Some people, especially because the syringes, find it very scary. And some people find it like a resurrection. They find it very moving and very beautiful. Some of it find it just interesting. You never know. I mean, I think people bring their own stuff to art, and then they take away their own stuff. So I'm being a vehicle for them to hopefully learn something about HIV, and also to learn something about themselves and learn something about people living with HIV. So everybody's going to react differently, which is the way it should be. And that's what art is. Art is personal. Art is individual. And my art is a vehicle for them to learn more. I think one of the reasons I'm still alive, a lot of my friends who are no longer alive, we all were diagnosed around the same time, is part of it's luck, just timing. The drugs that I needed were there when I needed them, but also I take my drugs religiously. I never miss a dose, and that's hard. That's a challenge for a lot of people. But I have my own little rituals, and so that when I don't do it, there's something in my body that says you need to take your drugs. That's really the most important thing, because if you start missing your medication times, then the virus can become resistant to the medications, and then you've lost the use of those medications. And there aren't that many out there, so you don't want to lose the efficacy of those medications. The other thing is I exercise really regularly and I eat well. One of the things that happens to a lot of people with HIV is they lose body mass because the body can't make fat anymore. I don't have any fat on me, if you've noticed. So I have to go to the gym. If I don't go to the gym, I will lose lots of weight. So I have to go to the gym to build muscle since I can't build fat. So that's another thing why I'm still here. So I try to build muscle because that when I get sick, I can lose 20 pounds in a week. So I want to have that buffer zone there so I can stay above that. My art keeps me alive in that it keeps me engaged, it keeps me working. I know that when my first partner died of AIDS, this was back in 1986, it was very, very hard for me to be in the studio. It was hard for me to work. I thought my art would be there for me, and it wasn't at first, but slowly I would go to the studio and I could work for like 15 minutes. And then the next day maybe I could work for 16 minutes. And the art is what really brought me back into the world. It was what I could live with, what I could focus on, and so we were sort of like partners. My art and myself were partners bringing me back into the world. So I started working in 1996 on a piece called Lazarus. It was a figure like this, but it was all made of chunks of glass. This was the time when basically everybody who had AIDS or HIV expected to die because there was no treatment that was really working long lasting. Then in 1996, the protease inhibitors came out, and all of a sudden we had a new lease on life. We were reborn. And so that piece, Lazarus, was about that. And so for me, it was also, my second partner had died that year. So it was for me a way of re-entering the world. And boy, I don't know what I would have done if I did not have that. It was a meditation for me. The art was my bridge to the world. It was the only thing I could focus on. It was all I could focus on. It was all I could deal with at that point. I couldn't deal with people, I couldn't deal with being out, but I could deal with my art, and then my art could deal with the world. It was sort of my go-between. When I'm working on a piece like this, a lot of it it's sort of meditation. The piece takes over. It's many, many decisions. It's like, okay, I'm going to put this here. Is that right? Does that need to be there? And then I'll sit with it, look at it, walk around it. Nope, it doesn't need to be there. So the piece, we have a conversation. I'm not talking to myself. I have a conversation with the art. It tells me what it wants. It tells me, each bottle tells me where it wants to be. So yeah, it's not a monologue, it's definitely a dialogue.